Donald Trump has been very busy lately. He's gotten every single government website to be plastered with the radical left has shut down the government. And that added on to all the work he's been putting into the AI videos of Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero. And he's been very, very busy shutting down every single negotiations meeting he was supposed to have with Chuck Schumer. Maybe in one of these meetings, he would have found out what Chuck Schumer actually wanted. What happened to the art of the deal? You have to talk to someone to know what they actually want. But I wanted to, in this video, kind of be very specific about what I think Chuck Schumer wants, and be very specific about what people like Sean Hannity on Fox News are saying that they want. Here is Sean Hannity fact-checking CNN, and then I'll fact-check Sean Hannity and CNN, because I think they're both kind of wrong, with what the White House has said themselves. So what Trump has released. Here it is.
Claim that Democrats want to give extend health care to illegal immigrants. That is not true. Illegal immigrants are not eligible for federal health care programs.
What fake news CNN just said is not true. No wonder nobody watches them. Let's take a closer look, shall we? Let's tell you the truth. Page 57, the Democrats' ridiculous proposed resolution. Let's read it, shall we? Subtitle B of Title 7 of the act titled An Act to Provide for Reconciliation pursuant to Title 2 of the House Continuing Resolution 14, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, is repealed. Okay, what does that mean? It means their proposed resolution would repeal new safeguards against waste, fraud, abuse in health care spending and restore and continue $200 billion taxpayer dollars, taxpayer-funded health care subsidies that go to illegal aliens. The left wants to reinstate Biden-era emergency COVID funding, supposed to be temporary. That would include giving funds for health care to illegals. Again, it was supposed to be temporary, ended by the One Big Beautiful Bill.
All right, I want to be very specific about this, and then I'll jump into the White House documents that explain that drills down into what those $200 billion in cuts are. And it kind of fleshes out Sean Hannity's point. These $200 billion are absolutely not going to illegal immigrants. And if you knew what they were going to, if you were under the impression that they were going to illegal immigrants, I suspect that you would be in favor of them, even if you are conservative. The only federal Medicaid program that funds illegal immigrants is emergency Medicaid, right? Hospitals, by law, are required to stabilize patients, not give them full care, not give them like chemotherapy, or recover them fully, but stabilize them no matter their status, right? Why? Ask Congress. It's a law that they pass, right? They have to do that. So Medicaid was like, well, these hospitals just can't take a loss, right? They're going to go out of business. They already operate on negative margins. So we're going to reimburse them federally. This gets rid of that for illegal immigrants. That is the only thing about illegal immigrants. The rest of this is about lawfully present immigrants, and it's a very different thing. Let's open up this White House document. This is the $193 billion that Sean Hannity gracefully rounded up to $200 billion. And ironically, he's comparing it to CHIP. And if you know anything about the Big Beautiful Bill, you know that CHIP eligibility was cut for people of certain immigration statuses. And that leads us into our first line item here, which is that it's not only CHIP, but Medicaid, Medicare, the ACA subsidies, SNAP, all of these were cut for a ton of people, including, asylees, refugees, trafficking victims, people who got Convention Against Torture protections, withholding of removal protections, parolees, people with TPS, everyone but people with DACA. DACA didn't get it for some reason. But these are the kind of vulnerable people that are now without health care in later 2026, right, when these kick in. And this is the first thing that they say the Democrats want to take back, even though they have no idea what the Democrats want to take back because they're not negotiating with them, right? So that is an easy one to justify because guess what? These immigrants are in the risk pool, and none of these are illegal. Like, case in point, don't talk about illegals, talk about lawfully present people. These are the people that are significantly damaged by the Big Beautiful Bill. And we still have to take care of them. If they get sick, the hospitals still have to stabilize them. They just have to take a loss. Same thing for emergency Medicaid that we just talked about for illegals, which is down here. Emergency care, sorry, not emergency Medicaid. Federal spending will increase by $28 billion because we have to reimburse the losses that hospitals have to take. for our uninsured populace, right? Because we don't want to let people die. So this is just directly hurting the hospitals and states in their budgets in line items that we all agree serve the public purpose, right? If someone is sick, we have made it encoded in our statutes that we ought not to let them die. We have guaranteed healthcare as a human right in America. We just haven't put in the provisions to finance that. Hospitals have to stabilize, which is why they should obviously be reimbursed for stabilizing illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants. Now, what is not mentioned in this document, and something that I personally thought Schumer was trying to get back, was the penalty put on the states for distributing healthcare to people not mentioned in Trump's short list of people who ought to be distributed healthcare, right, by the government. That matching rate is reduced from like 90% to 80%. I don't know if Schumer's demanding that. That would be a pretty big demand because that is a core part of the big, beautiful bill. But closing the California loophole. So this is about the provider taxes. What are provider taxes? Provider taxes are when states tax providers of healthcare. They take those tax revenues and then they say, we have these tax revenues from these people who do Medicaid, right? Operate the actual healthcare side of it. We got these tax revenues from them, so the government allows us to match them. So if we tax these people more, we get more matches. We have more funds for state healthcare. Our piggy bank's a little bit bigger, so we can afford to take care of more undocumented immigrants. And this is where CNN is kind of wrong, because yes, this provision did facilitate probably more undocumented immigrants to get healthcare. What a tragedy, to be honest. In this provider tax, extra Medicaid, California was the main figure using this. They have a lot of undocumented immigrants there. They're taking care of them because, guess what? I'll say it again. Undocumented immigrants are a part of the risk pool. You can't do anything about that. We should absolutely provide them with something, but we should also have very secure borders so we don't have undocumented immigrants in here to begin with. But once they are in here, we shouldn't be terrorizing them. And leveraging this cruel and unusual punishment of punishing states for taking care of them and acknowledging the reality that, if they're sick, we're not just going to let them die because that's not what is statutorily demanded from Congress onto these hospitals that operate within these states, right? Repealing a special, this is a funny one. Repealing a special Obamacare subsidy for non-citizens. Obamacare prohibits Americans earning below the poverty line from receiving a subsidy to help afford their premiums, while some immigrants who earn below the poverty line were made eligible for such subsidies. Oh gosh. So this is for people who have not passed their 5-year bar. So if you are a green card, you have to pass a 5-year bar before you can get these programs, like Medicaid, Medicare, etc. SNAP, CHIP. But not Obamacare. So if you're before that 5-year deadline, you are going to be covered. You're going to be taken care of by Obamacare subsidies, right? Not illegals. Illegals cannot access this program. Americans, right? The only federal program, again, that does illegals is the emergency matching program. So it kind of says this below. The drafters of Obamacare created a special rule to subvert this limitation by extending Obamacare subsidies to these immigrants earning below the poverty line, despite denying subsidies to poor Americans. This is just a dumb line here. Don't know who wrote that. Because those poor Americans have access to Medicaid and SNAP, while the poor immigrants, right, have nothing but these subsidies. And guess what? If you're getting Medicaid, you're automatically not eligible for these Obamacare subsidies, right? Then it talks about, of course, the extensive non-efforts, really, of the big, beautiful bill in combating waste, fraud, and abuse. And all these programs are just enforcement mechanisms for the new Medicaid rules that they have input. This is not really tackling waste, fraud, and abuse because it doesn't really exist, right? They're just making more bureaucracy, to be honest, with the heavy amount of paperwork you have to run to do a Medicaid work requirement, which we know is very inefficient. It doesn't do anything to it decreases insurance rates, doesn't do anything to incentivize employment. It just screws people over because Small amount of people are going to fall through the cracks. This is a big government bureaucracy that conservatives are supposed to not like. Now they're going to be uninsured. No fault of their own. When you think of a public policy, you have to think, is this going to have a net effect? No, even if my intentions are good, right? Will this amount of paperwork and checking on these people's work status every single month, that's going to have people falling through the cracks, and disastrous things are going to happen to them if they get sick, right? And they don't have health insurance. So that's something that they should think about. This does not talk about the extension of the enhanced premium tax credit, because that has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with the illegal aliens. Of course, that has to do with American citizens, and that is what American citizens like. I showed a poll in one of my previous videos. It is very popular. Even Republicans, it is borderline popular among Republicans. Very popular among independents and Democrats. So there's really no. I think a lot of Republicans secretly want to pass it because people like it so much. It's done nothing but good, relative to how much it has costed. So at the end of the day here, CNN is wrong for walking back on the Democrats' support for people in the risk pool who ought to be covered if states have the funds to do so with their own state funds, right? It's by their own choice. Taxpayers vote for it. This is why we have state sovereignty. This is what the Constitution was written for. Yeah, like that's all good stuff. Conservatives should like that. They shouldn't be threatening states, for using their own state dollars, right? CNN should be embracing that. And Sean Hannity shouldn't be lying about, he should be mentioning who's really getting damage from this. Not illegal immigrants. People who were accepted asylum, accepted parole, vetted, right, extensively. Trafficking victims, domestic violence victims, people with TPS. People who are here and will be here for a while. And very likely for good reason. And you can't prove that otherwise. But, Democrats saying, this came after a clip of a Democrat saying that she was against healthcare for illegal immigrants. And it's like, they shouldn't be fully eligible for Medicaid. But they should at least have access to the ACA marketplace, right? They don't have to get subsidies. They should, at the very least, be matched for these emergency hospital visits. That's just awful that they aren't, because these rural hospitals have to, take a hit for that. And Republicans even admit it. That's why they put a $30 billion, $50 billion fund to help rural hospitals. That's not going to help any other hospitals in blue states, but, it is what it is. You take what you can get. So that's the deal with that. I'm so interested to see how this is going to end. Really, I hope like these things that Chuck Schumer wants are really good. And I hope that they get passed. One of my biggest issues with the bill is what he's asking for. Like, when the bill was being negotiated, I was like astounded that nobody was talking about this provision that would literally take, people who had been accepted in this country for good reason because they were escaping something, right? All those people just no options for healthcare anymore. Literally nothing. I just don't know how people can justify that. I assume some states are going to bear the penalty of, giving them healthcare and then just having less matching funds. But with the provider tax being cut too, the provider tax matching program that allowed, states to funnel billions of dollars more into their Medicaid programs, I don't see how that's going to happen. Because states typically have to be more worried about a balanced budget than the federal government does, which is why these subsidies are so important. But hopefully that explained it.